The shocking truth behind the three most terrifying judgments from the book of Revelation. Few knew what truly happened that night in the distant lands of Patmos. A vision so haunting, it sent chills down the spines of those who dared to witness it. John, an aged prophet, felt the weight of heaven's secrets pressing against his chest. He stood there, trembling, the air thick with fear and trepidation. His eyes widened as he beheld the scrolls sealed with 7 ominous seals, each one containing the power to unleash chaos upon the world. As the first seal was broken, a rider on a white horse emerged, a crown upon his head, deceit dressed in glory. Shouts rang through the heavens. What did he bring? War? Famine? The crowd gasped, voices trembling. The ground seemed to tremor beneath their feet as the second seal followed. A red horse galloped forth, bringing bloodshed and discord. It was a scene from the darkest nightmares, with families torn apart, brother fighting brother. Then the third seal shattered the silence. A black horse appeared, its rider holding a pair of scales. The aroma of desperation hung heavy in the air. A voice cried out, "A quart of wheat for a denarius." Panic set in. What would they do? The people clutched their stomachs, the ache of hunger gnawing at their insides. The unimaginable suffering was palpable, as if it were a living entity, wrapping around their hearts. Finally, the fourth seal was broken, and a pale horse emerged, the very personification of death. Eyes filled with despair reflected in the dim light. Fear wrapped around the onlookers like a shroud. What lay ahead? Destruction. Was there any hope to be found in this unfurling disaster? As John dropped to his knees, a sweat beat against his brow, his spirit wrestled with despair and an insatiable curiosity. Would this be the end, or was there more to come? The whispers of the crowd filled the air. What is happening? How can we survive? The tension built like a storm, dark clouds gathering above. In that moment, the very foundation of their beliefs trembled. How would it all end? And what secrets were hidden within the lines of prophecy? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As John knelt in the depths of his vision, the fear of the impending judgment consumed him. The whispers of the crowd echoed in his ears, a symphony of unease and dread. Yet amidst the storm of emotions, a flicker of resolve began to ignite within him. Perhaps there was more beyond the horrors he had witnessed. Perhaps within those seals lay the mystery of redemption. Even as the world trembled on the brink of despair, with each broken seal, the fabric of reality seemed to rip apart, exposing a glimpse of the somber truth hidden beneath the facade of existence. The fifth seal, which lay yet unbroken, called to him like a whispered secret, promising revelation amidst the chaos. As if sensing his yearning, a hush fell over the gathering, a collective intake of breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. Then, with a resounding crack, the fifth seal burst open. John felt a shift in the atmosphere, as if the heavens themselves were leaning in, curious about the fate of the world. From the depths of a vast altar, voices emerged, a multitude clad in white robes, their faces aglow with an otherworldly light. "How long, O Lord?" they cried, their voices harmonious and haunting, "until you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood." Their cries resonated deep within John's spirit. They were martyrs, souls who had endured suffering for a faith unshaken by the turmoil of their times. Their presence breathed life into the idea that sacrifice carried meaning, that even the gravest of trials could birth a purpose greater than the strife itself. John's heart thudded as he beheld their fervent pleading. Each face told stories of love, hope, and fortitude in the face of despair. They hungered not for vengeance, but for divine justice, the restoration of balance within the fractured world. The realization struck him: perhaps the impending calamities were not meant to crush the spirit but to unveil the steadfastness of faith amidst the ruin. Yet an unsettling question lingered in his mind. If the martyrs awaited divine retribution, how could the world ever be redeemed? What must occur for such a transformation to take root? Were they to remain trapped in the cycle of suffering and judgment, or could grace emerge from ashes, a flicker of the divine within the catastrophe? As the cries of the martyrs echoed, John felt the weight of the seals press upon his chest anew. The reality of judgment mingled intricately with hope, threading together a tapestry too complex to unravel by mere human understanding. Would mercy prevail in the face of destruction, or would humanity be forever lost in its own chaos? With these reflections washing over him, John found himself lost between two worlds: the realm of despair and the promise of redemption, both fighting for his soul's allegiance. The scroll lay before him, a map of truths yet to be discovered, promising revelations that hinted at a future both terrifying and wondrous. His spirit stirred with anticipation. What deeper secrets lay entwined within the remaining seals, and how would they shape the destiny of humanity? Would the final unfolding lead to hope, or would it only deepen the darkness? As the echoes of the martyrs' pleas faded into a profound silence, John felt the atmosphere shift once more. The fifth seal had unveiled a truth too profound to overlook: the deep yearning for justice intertwined with an unwavering faith. With each breath, the weight of responsibility pressed upon him, to bear witness, to listen, and to understand the profound implications of what lay before him. Suddenly, a vast shadow stretched across the expanse, obscuring the brilliance of the throng. It was as if the veil between heaven and earth had thinned, allowing a glimpse of the celestial glory undeterred by earthly shadows. In that moment, John could observe the distant realms where divine conversations unfolded, and perhaps, there, he might discern the meaning buried within the chaos. As he contemplated the purpose of the seals, a flicker of movement captured his gaze. In the unfolding vision, the sixth seal began to tremble. The earth groaned beneath it, a prelude to unimaginable devastation. Mountains shifted, as if in response to a cosmic command, and the skies darkened, ominous clouds swirling in a dance of foreboding. What wrath awaits below? John wondered, his heart quickening. The martyrs had longed for justice, yet what form might that take? Would the brokenness of the world serve as the crucible for greater truths to emerge, or was it destined to be consumed by its own anger? As the seal cracked open, he beheld a multitude of figures, each one gripped by terror, scrambling in vain to hide from the approaching storm. "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him who is seated on the throne," they cried, their voices a chorus of despair. "For the great day of his wrath has come, and who can stand?" John's mind raced at the stark contrast: the martyrs clamoring for justice alongside the cries of fear from the unrepentant. Metaphoric scaffolding of righteousness arose, showing him a stark truth: the conflict between hope and fear cut profoundly through humanity. In their quest for freedom, had they unknowingly placed themselves in the path of inevitable retribution? As the marvelous display of divine forces continued to unfold, John wrestled with the significance of this happening. Was the impending chaos merely the result of human folly, or was there something deeper at play, an oscillation between divine judgment and the chance for redemption? In such tumult, did one not forge identity, resilience, and the sacred strength required to stand firm? Lost in his contemplation, John felt the urgency of the moment. Here lay an essential choice, a crossroads for humanity, where innocence could lead to mercy, and guilt to devastation. Would the hearts of mankind, confronted with their shortcomings, find the courage to turn towards grace, or would they scatter in self-preservation, never unlocking the healing truth hidden within their darkness? The depth of the unfolding mystery weighed heavily upon him as the sixth seal throbbed with anticipation. Each revelation compelled him to venture deeper into the enigma of God's designs, traversing through the tension of despair toward ineffable hope. Would this divine orchestra ultimately strike a chord of reconciliation, or would humanity remain unyielding, steeped in a cycle of suffering, impervious to its liberating truth? As the shadows lengthened and the cries grew louder, John's resolve solidified anew. What would the final judgment reveal, not only for the souls engraved upon the altar but also for those who walked in the light of day? In the cosmic dance between despair and hope, what truth would rise from the ashes of judgment? As the tumult resounded and the world around John trembled, a stillness emerged within him, a cloister of quietude amidst the chaos. The vision enveloped him, and he pressed deeper into its unconventional lessons, yearning to unlock the fragmented meanings that floated like whispers on the air. The sixth seal lingered in its cosmic resonance, and John perceived a multitude of reactions throughout the realm. He watched as the earth itself seemed to rebel, its foundations quaking in anguish. Beneath the winds howling, he heard an echo of the ancient words spoken by the prophets, "The earth is the Lord's and all it contains." What did it mean, he thought, for creation to react so vibrantly to the divine unsealing? Drawing his attention back to the desperate cries of those who wished to conceal themselves, it became clearer that their fear was shackled to an awareness of their actions, the very lives they chose to lead that had distanced them from the truth of their Creator. They sought refuge, but John felt the paradox of their plea. In seeking to escape judgment, were they not missing the greater purpose of understanding it? Suddenly, a luminous presence appeared amidst the shadows. It was then, the profound realization dawned upon him: where there was judgment, there lay also an invitation. This was not merely a day of reckoning but a confluence of love and justice meant to guide broken spirits back to wholeness. In pursuing only the fear of consequence, they might overlook the call to repentance and renewal. Who can stand? They had cried out, and in that moment, John contemplated the answer wrapped inside the tremors. Perhaps, he mused, standing was not merely a matter of perseverance in the face of wrath but a choice to embrace the voice of grace. Had not every heartbeat of creation sung for redemption? Was escapism not a denial of that very essence? As he grappled with these insights, visions of hope flickered in his mind. He recalled the stories of ancient heroes who had stood unwavering amidst storms of judgment, their resolute faith leading to the preservation and restoration of both themselves and their people. Noah, Abraham, Lot, all strangers to despair, they had harnessed their faith, often in the direst of circumstances. With each passing vision, John began to glimpse a broader tapestry, the moldings of a divine narrative infused with mercy, inviting those who found themselves amidst despair to reclaim their truth. It reeked of a profound mercy intertwined with divine love that invited each soul to partake in its relevance, transcending the fear of condemnation that gripped them. Would they heed this call? Would the burden of their fear melt away in the warmth of reconciliation? As he pondered deeply, John felt a tender spark ignite within him, a vibrant yearning to shout to those souls tangled in shadows, "Awaken!" For even in the depths of sorrow, an eternal light beckons to guide you home, yet self-preservation often comes at the cost of transformation. Would humanity dare to traverse those treacherous pathways steeped in darkness towards vulnerability and healing? Would they grasp at the tendrils of hope trailing right beneath their helpless cries, or would they remain bound by their own chains, unwilling to trust in the grace woven throughout the judgment? In the stillness that followed, a new question took root in John's heart. What truth lies in the interplay between judgment and grace, and could the very act of facing one's fears lead to a more profound discovery of the divine? As the world quaked under the weight of revelation, the essence of faith seemed to dance just beyond reach, whispering of possibilities yet unimagined, and the journey to understanding had only just begun. As John remained in this contemplative state, ensconced in the weaving shadows of his vision, he sensed the space around him shifting once more. The air was pregnant with expectant silence, a prelude to something profound. The luminous presence that had flickered into view began to coalesce into a figure, defined by an ethereal radiance that seemed to engulf the chaos while also illuminating the deeper truths hidden within it. "Speak, bright one," John implored, his heart quickened by both dread and curiosity. What is this truth that rests beneath the tumult of the sixth seal? The figure, crowned in light, inclined its head, exuding a wisdom that spanned the ages. "Behold, John, it is not merely the tumult of earthquake and storm that demands your attention, it is the heart that quakes in the marrow of its being. The judgments that unfold are not simply to draw fear but to awaken the slumbering spirit. Therein lies the moment of truth, the threshold of understanding." With a sweeping motion, the presence extended its arm, revealing visions that stretched across expanse and time. John beheld images of countless leaves, a kaleidoscope of faces painted with confusion, hope, and despair. They were the faces of his people, and yet they were every people, a tapestry of humanity woven together by shared struggles and aspirations. "Look closely," the figure encouraged, "and you shall see that each life reveals a story of misunderstanding, of loss, of a relentless search for purpose. The judgment you witness is a reflection of the very choices they have made, yet buried within those choices is the echo of my mercy. As these words settled upon John, he was drawn to one visage in particular, a woman with eyes filled with anguish, pleading yet in silence. It was a gaze familiar to him. There was an essence of vulnerability there that whispered of wounds long unaddressed. He felt as though he were straining to hear her unspoken truths, the agony of her burdens reaching out to him. What must she understand? John asked earnestly, focusing on the figure before him. In her fear, she has retreated. She believes that to emerge is to invite further hurt. But true redemption lies in confronting that which binds her. The ripping of the veil reveals not just judgment but also the unfathomable depths of love that await. A silent wave washed over John, one that stirred within him the reminders of his own vulnerability, his desire to hide from the world in the face of judgment, to shun the light of scrutiny, to safeguard himself from pain. Yet here was the invitation to transcend those fears, to uncover truths that lay dormant and to forge paths toward restoration. With a gentle flick of its wrist, the figure summoned glimpses of glimmering pathways filled with light. Each path represented a choice, a personal journey toward understanding that beckoned to souls entangled by shadows. They bear witness to the breadth of the divine, an invitation layered within every moment of judgment. It does not end in condemnation but leads to an encounter with grace if only they relent to see it in awe. John nodded knowingly as the revelations unfurled. He began to comprehend that judgment's severity is ultimately softened by the possibility of redemption. It invites a confrontation not only of one's own misdeeds but also of the inherent capacity for renewal. He felt compelled to share this wisdom with those he encountered, to guide them toward the flicker of hope that resided even in their darkest corners. But would they listen? Would they dare to traverse this journey of introspection, or would fear continue to shackle them, clouding their vision of what lay ahead? As the brilliant figure faded, leaving John somber yet invigorated, a perplexing thought lodged itself in his mind. If humanity is driven to resist judgment, does that not simultaneously erect barriers against the very grace they crave? Might the true miracle lie in awakening to the boundless love staring back, even from within the depths of despair? The quest to unearth these answers lingered elegantly in the air as he pondered the road ahead. In the lingering glow of the vision, John felt the air shift yet again, a familiar tension prickling up his spine. As silence wrapped around him, his heart called out for clarity. It hungered for deeper understanding, for more insight into the essence of the judgments unfolding before him. With every breath, he could sense the weight of responsibility pressing upon him, not merely for his own enlightenment, but for the sake of those he would encounter among the living. The shimmering light had waned, yet traces of its warmth seeped into the fabric of John's spirit, inviting him to a place of contemplation. He found himself stepping softly upon an imagined landscape, the ground beneath his feet a mosaic of textured thoughts and the unfurling of memories. The vision still danced within his mind, igniting a fierce desire to seek the truth behind the judgments that had been revealed to him. With careful steps, he ventured deeper into this ethereal space, confiding in the silent susurrus of creation. What do the judgments signify if not mere chastisement? Why does it seem that pain and love walk hand in hand? A presence, though not as resplendent as the first, brushed against him, like gossamer threads weaving through the fabric of dawn. John turned, feeling an unspoken invitation from an entity less defined yet profoundly felt. It stood as a shadow of insight, beckoning him closer to the heart of the mystery. Child of man, every judgment you witness casts forth echoes not only of consequence but also of opportunity. The presence imparted, its voice resonating with tenderness. The storms that ravage the earth symbolize the turmoil within. They reveal not merely destruction but a call to introspection. They are the labor pains of a new birth, creation in travail. John paused, allowing the reflective words to permeate his soul. The very earth, rumbled and twisted, mirrored the inner struggles that lay unaddressed within each heart. The judgments were suffused with a deeper purpose, a purposeful shaking loose of obligations and illusions that no longer served their intended course. What then is the path to awakening? John inquired, a thread of hope weaving through his question. How does one rise above the storm? By embracing the truths that lie veiled beyond the dread, the presence replied gently. You see, each judgment rumbles forth a duality. They are the crossroads of fear and courage. To awaken requires confronting the fear that shrouds one's spirit in darkness. It is a crushing moment, yes, yet within this crucible is where alchemy breathes. As this realization settled, John felt an electric thrill coursing through his veins, a merging of urgency and understanding. The women and men whose lives he had glimpsed earlier caught in cycles of pain, guilt, and doubt needed to grasp this shared journey forward. They had to recognize the judgments for what they were, an invitation to transformation. Looking out across the expanses, John beheld a multitude of figures, with voices dying in silence, seeking to untangle themselves from their chains. They were like leaves caught in a tempest, swaying, waiting for the winds of change to pass, churning in chaos, unaware that the stillness beyond promised to cradle their wounds. But what if they choose to ignore this truth? John responded, a tightness settling in his chest. What if they remain entrenched in their fears? Every soul has its own season, the voice imparted, softening as it resonated through the firmament. Yet the precariousness of time does beckon. The truth remains that grace shines, even during their darkest hours. Judgment, indeed, serves its purpose, urging the heart to take that momentous step, a spark of hope amidst rumbling uncertainty. As John pondered over these revelations, a deeper question loomed within him, unfurling uncontrollably. What happens when the winds of change grow wild, and the call to transformation is met with recklessness? Would humanity brave the rising tide of accountability, or would the roar of judgment drown out the whispers of grace? Thus, the quest deepened, unraveling what it meant to navigate both the storm and the sanctuary that lay beyond it. With the air thick with contemplation, John's spirit quaked with anticipation, a subtle tremor echoing through his thoughts as he stood surrounded by the shadows of visions past and future. The warmth of the presence lingered just beyond his grasp, yet the clarity it offered pushed him to delve deeper. What lay ahead was shrouded in both fear and hope, a duality he now craved to understand more fully. In the depths of this expansive mental landscape, he felt a pull, leading him forward into an area illuminated by a gentle glow. This light bore no resemblance to the burning brilliance of the earlier vision. Instead, it exuded a soft and nurturing warmth akin to the first rays of dawn, promising renewal even amidst destruction. As he approached, intricate scenes began to unfurl before him, revealing the consequences of the judgments he had witnessed, cities collapsing, hearts breaking, and yet, life unfurling anew in unexpected ways. Here, dear child, lies the heartbeat of creation amid devastation. The presence spoke again, weaving an understanding through the display. Each judgment is a mirror, reflecting not just what must be torn asunder, but what yearns to emerge from the rubble. John caught sight of figures rising from the ashes, their eyes wide with realization, darting between despair and determination. These souls, who once belied the impact of their choices upon the world, now stood stripped bare of pretense, confronted with the jagged truths of their lives. The winds of change had blown them to this pivotal moment, yet not all were willing to embrace the path laid before them. Why do some clothe themselves in ignorance, while others shed the weight of their past? John murmured, grappling with the dual paths manifesting before him. Is it a matter of strength, or perhaps surrender? It is both and neither, came the gentle reply, rippling through John's awareness like the delicate rustling of leaves. It is the essence of the soul's journey, a tapestry woven of choices. Some souls cling to what is known, fearing the vulnerability inherent in transformation, while others, recognizing the need for healing, choose to confront their shadows and move toward the light. As he absorbed this wisdom, John felt a shroud of dread slithering around the edges of his consciousness. The judgments, while ultimately invitational, also bore witness to the tragic undercurrents of defiance and refusal. Would humanity lean into the invitation toward rebirth, or would they recoil into the darkness, spiraling into despair born from denial? The landscape continued to shift, and John saw an image of himself among the figures, their expressions riddled with uncertainty, yearning, and even anger. He stepped closer to the scene, feeling the gravity of their emotions brush against his own heart. In that moment, he realized the weight of his witness. He was not merely an observer but an advocate for change. Can I guide them, aid them in understanding? He asked, a deep yearning to be of service thrumming through his being. Is it enough for me to simply observe these events unfold? The presence smiled, a warmth enveloping John, filling the crevices of doubt. You, dear child, possess a gift of perception. It falls upon you to share what you have gleaned, to translate the silent truths into the waking world. But know, the choice of awakening lies within each heart. Your task is to embolden, but their choosing is not within your control. As John contemplated this responsibility, a vast stillness settled around him, echoing in the spaces between thoughts. The overlapping judgments, like storm clouds pregnant with rain, began to coalesce once more into something altogether more profound. The deeper John reveled in the truth of his circumstances, the more significant the questions rematerialized within him, swirling like the wind. How does one tip the balance toward transformation when faced with such daunting oblivion? Will the voices of awakening rise above the clamor of fear, challenging others to uncover the beginnings hidden within the endings? In this delicate dance of judgment and grace, what part would he play in awakening the souls buried beneath layers of chaos and uncertainty? As John contemplated the weight of his responsibilities, the gentle glow around him began to pulse rhythmically, revealing yet another layer of insight intertwined with the visual tapestry of transformation. His heart beat in harmony with the light, guiding him deeper into the realm where judgment and grace braided together. Suddenly, the scenes morphed, and John found himself standing at the foot of a great mountain, its summit veiled in a shroud of mist. A primal energy thrummed through the air, urging him upwards. Instinctively, he began his ascent, each step steeped in purpose as the echoes of human frailty and yearning resonated along the winding path. As he climbed, he encountered a multitude of souls journeying alongside him, some weary, some filled with vigor, each reflecting their unique approach to the burdens they carried. He saw faces drawn tight with despair, others unearthing fierce determination. Each visage told a story, and John paused, moments like these pregnant with understanding, as he listened to the whispers of their struggles. Why must we suffer? A woman cried, her voice raw with pain. Why must these trials come upon us, one after another? Will there ever be relief? John could see the cracks in her armor, the layers of tribulation weighing heavily upon her spirit. The presence, though absent in form, manifested gently in the wind that swept through the mountain pass, stirring leaves and thoughts alike. Dear one, suffering is not the end, it is the fertile ground from which new life springs forth. Through trials, hearts become soft, and rigid truths give way to fluid understanding. As the woman absorbed the words, her expression shifted, confusion lifting like morning fog. She looked around at the others, recognition dawning upon her face. I am not alone, she murmured, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Our sufferings may weave together to form something greater. Inspired by her transformation, John continued his ascent, the weight of the world evident in the rhythms of the souls surrounding him. Each step brought him closer to the summit, but also closer to the answers he sought. He felt an urgency fueled by the plight of humanity. How many more could find their way through the turmoil? At last, John reached the peak, where the mist parted to reveal a vast horizon teeming with color and light. It was as though he stood at the edge of a new beginning, a sacred space where potential lay suspended with infinite possibility. His heart swelled with admiration for humanity's resilience, yet an ache remained, cracking open the shell of his understanding. In that moment, within the expanse of revelation unfolding before him, John's gaze was drawn to three figures delineating the skyline. Each stood for the judgments he had witnessed, the war, the plague, and the famine. They towered like sentinels, embodying the calamities that haunted every corner of existence, yet even as they cast long shadows across the land, a singular truth flickered at their feet, half obscured. Life was emerging, a vibrant tapestry from the weavings of despair. Flowers sprang from the cracks in stone, children played in the remnants of strife, their laughter ringing clear. Life endures, in defiance of darkness. Are these judgments our greatest fear or our highest calling? John pondered aloud, holding space for the answers to flow through his heart. Is it in the specter of suffering that we find strength, or merely in our willingness to rise up in the face of such struggles? The winds twisted around him once more, as if the universe itself was listening, waiting for John to weave his understanding into something new. The presence permeated his soul with gentle encouragement, pushing him to voice what lay heavy on his heart. In this moment of realization, as he stood suspended between the recognition of his own journey and the collective struggle of humanity, a new question emerged, one that felt weighty and profound. How can we embrace the shadows of despair, recognizing them as catalysts for our deepest potential? while still yearning to rise as a unified force pulling each other towards the light. Would humanity find the strength to glean hope from chaos, or would fear continue to forge their path? As the winds swirled around him, John felt the pulse of the mountain echoing his own heartbeat, and with each breath, he surrendered deeper into the stillness that pervaded the summit. The three figures remained steadfast against the horizon, embodying the weight of humanity's deepest fears: war, plague, and famine. Their very existence called for recognition, provoking a contemplation that stirred within him a longing for understanding. Suddenly, the landscape shimmered, and the vibrant colors danced with an intensity that illuminated the faces of the souls around him. John turned to them, his heart racing with the urgency of his thoughts. What do we fear most in these judgments? Is it the suffering they bring, or is it that they reveal our own frailty? One by one, the weary travelers shared their stories, recalling instances where their lives were touched by the specter of these calamities. A man spoke of his brother swept away by the horrors of war, reducing years of unity to ash and silence. A woman recounted how illness crept into her home, unraveling the fabric of her family. Another soul lamented the hunger that gnawed at the disheartened, leaving them hollow-eyed. And hearing their tales, a tapestry of interconnectedness formed around him, woven tightly with threads of sorrow and resilience. It became clear to John that each story held a shared lineage, a collective experience that transcended individual pain. If these trials do not break us, but instead bind us together, what can that teach us about our purpose in facing them? He wondered aloud, seeking clarity in the echoes of shared sorrow. As they spoke, the mist thickened and reformed, revealing scenes of communities both past and present responding to adversity with remarkable courage. Individuals gathered to care for those afflicted by illness, warriors emerged from despair to restore peace, and families stood united against the specter of hunger, cultivating hope from scarcity. John's heart swelled with a profound realization: the judgments, though daunting, did not merely signify destruction, they birthed a resilience that thrived in the shadows they cast. Amidst the darkness, the light found ample ground to flourish. How can it be that from pain, compassion burgeons? From suffering, our highest virtues arise? In that moment, as clarity washed over him, John experienced an awakened understanding, a perception that saw judgments not as final sentences but as gateways to profound transformation. With each shared experience, the souls on the mountain began to realize that they were not merely victims of fate but architects of their own narratives, positioned at the crossroads of darkness and grace. Yet even amid this growing awareness, a heavy veil of uncertainty loomed. What, then, must we do with this knowledge? How do we respond when faced with the awful beauty of our own capacity to rise, even as we face dire consequences? The question lingered in the air, carrying a weight that could not be easily dismissed. The gentle presence that had accompanied him from the onset caressed his spirit, urging reflection and inviting the community of souls to pause and absorb their collective epiphanies. As he looked among them, the gazes exchanged spoke of unspoken fears and burgeoning hope. They stood together, not only as individuals who suffered but as a collective pushing through trials toward an unfathomable light. And yet, there remained an essential uncertainty, a conundrum at the heart of their nascent strength. How might we protect this fragile bond forged in adversity, encouraging not just endurance, but growth in the face of future trials? Will history teach us, or must we persist to learn amidst the echoes of our collective suffering? As John stood on the summit of awareness, surrounded by the cacophony of life and the quiet whispers of newfound truths, he felt the weight of both time and eternity pressing upon him. The air buzzed with the energy of compassion, resonating with the stories shared among the souls congregated there, a mosaic of resilience born from despair. Together, they had begun to unearth the transformative quality hidden within judgment, illuminating the path toward understanding. But as the dawn of hope settled softly over the horizon of their hearts, John felt a compulsion to voice the urgency of their moment. If we are to forge a future from the shattering echoes of our past, he began, his voice steady with conviction, how must we approach the journey ahead? How can we convert our wounds into wisdom and guide others who find themselves ensnared in suffering? In that instant, the figures of war, plague, and famine shifted, their shadows lengthening yet revealing what lay beneath tattered remnants of humanity's tenacity. As the shadows receded, John realized there existed layers of potential beneath each grave visage, waiting to blossom. The opening of this understanding became a way for John to see through the din of fear that had long rallied behind these judgments, transforming them into whispers of invitation. With each connection, a current of hope surged through the gathered souls. They gazed upon one another, recognizing a shared purpose deep within their chorea, longing to transform shadows into light, turbulence into tranquility. Our experiences are not isolated, John breathed, the reverberation of his reflections saturating the atmosphere. They are the ties that bind us. From the ashes of suffering, we are called to weave a tapestry of community, each thread a story, each knot a lesson learned. We must embrace our collective vulnerability. A flicker ignited within the hearts of those surrounding John, a resonance of truth that began to coalesce into action. Inspired, they began to speak not just their afflictions but the strength summoned in the direst of hours. They shared candidly how they had cared for one another, how love had bloomed amidst the scorched earth of their anguish, and about how they had forged connections that sparked resilience in every heartache. John's heart echoed with their declarations, and he felt a pull encompassed by urgency. They must realize how anchored in courage they were becoming. Each one of you possesses the power to transcend fear and reclaim unity. Together, we are a voice of hope carved from the very trials we endure. We can dare to dream, even when the shadows loom overhead, he proclaimed, his spirit alive with fervor. Encouraged by John's words, the faces around him brightened, their eyes reflecting the dawning promise of transformation. Who would have thought that such trials, such mightiest of judgments, could sprout seeds of renewal? This truth was the epiphany, the understanding that while suffering paves paths fraught with uncertainty, it equally begets moments of profound beauty, where humanity thrives. That if only they could grasp that the judgments, while imposing, did not reside only in the realm of fear, but were also heralds of love seeking expression within the heart of creation. We must rise to recognize our shared strength, John continued. As we navigate the shadows, we can challenge the narrative of despair, painting a future where courage anchors the soul's journey, where life does not merely endure but flourishes. The shared breath of hope drifted around them, a luminescent wave that surged through each spirit, awakening understanding to the deepest essence of their trials. This was not merely a call to bear the judgment, but an invitation to partner with it. Engage constructively, asking what could be learned instead of succumbing to defeat. And just as hope began to anchor itself firmly in their hearts, a mighty wind cascaded across the landscape, beckoning forth cloudy visions of what the future could become. Suddenly, the shadows themselves seemed to shift into something unrecognizably beautiful, streaming light bursting forth between the cracks of suffering, illuminating the promise of a harmonious world beyond the trials they currently faced. At that moment, John comprehended something monumental, the final revelation of his vision. The judgments were not the end of the story, they were catalysts of transformation meant to draw every person closer to themselves and to one another. This profound alchemy of the heart surfaced amid calamity, guiding humanity toward a love that defies despair. As the atmosphere filled with new clarity, John turned once more toward the figures of war, plague, and famine. You are but a manifestation of the trials inherent in humanity's journey, he declared, his voice resonating through the collected spirits. But even you bearers of sorrow invite depth and connection. May we not shy away from you, but instead understand that you awaken within us the very faculties required to curate a radical love that threads through our days ahead. As the last echoes of his voice faded, the shadows of judgment enveloped them once more, embodying a soft glow, no longer intimidating but transformative. The energy of realization surged around the gathering, weaving their souls together in a sacred tapestry of love and courage, carrying within its fibers the stories of trials faced and the resilience nurtured. Together, they looked to the horizon, a vast expanse of infinite possibility unfurling before them. Though challenges lay ahead, they stood united in understanding that their shared vulnerability was where true strength resided. They had glimpsed the flicker of grace amidst darkness and were ignited with the fervor to rise, to embrace an enduring light born from the trials of their shared humanity. And in this moment, as John beheld the horizon, he felt the powerful winds of change beckoning forth with renewed intensity, a spiritual awakening that resonated with the heartbeat of the divine. At that moment, he knew the journey had just begun, revealing that the essence of judgment reshaped was ultimately love thundering in the hearts of those willing to face their fears, to embrace their truth, and to rise together in solidarity, forever anchored in hope. Thus, in the unfolding of this divine mystery, the eternal truth emerged. It is from the ashes that we discover our greatest potential, intertwined by love threading through every judgment extended, a clarion call resounding for every soul. We can rise, we can awaken, and we can embrace our journey toward becoming only journey forever illuminated by the light of grace.